Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we're going to be talking about Frogriders from Stronghold Games. It is a 2 to 4 player game. This is a funky theme. And a theme we've never seen before, right?
No.
When we talk about themes, this is a theme that we have never played with.
No. Yeah, exactly. We didn't break this out and say, oh, another frog riding game. No, this one's really interesting. In fact, when Jeremy first told me about this, I thought, Frogriders? I didn't know anything about it. Then you told me you thought I'd like it just because it has a really nice abstract base to it.
Yep.
And we'll get into it in a second, but it does. It's a very abstract game, but there's some layers onto it that make it feel like a little bit more than just pure abstract.
You're seeing all the components right now. This is fantastic. It's just a game board, some colored frogs, and then some cards.
Yeah, frogs with riders.
That's right. So let's talk about all the different components.
Yeah.
It's very simple to break down. You have a board in the center of the table, and on that board you have a number of lily pads that are broken into orthogonal lines, so to speak. You're going to take all the frogs in a 4-player game and randomly seed them on the board. How they're placed doesn't matter. The only thing you need to take care of is that this center space is left unblocked.
Right.
Now, if you play in a 2-player game, you're going to actually leave all of the outer areas unblocked and take a specific number of each of the 4 colored frogs out of the game.
I see.
Also, each player is going to get one of these reminder cards. This just tells you the actions that you can take on your game.
Which are very simple.
Yeah, very simple. There's a score track around the board. You're going to place your marker at the 0 space. You're going to seed the board with a couple different goals. You have public goals. In your first beginning game, you're going to start with 2 white public goals. As you progress and learn the game, you can play with the flip side and play 1 blue and then 1 white. And these are goals that each player at the end of the game can meet.
Yeah, basically some variable end-of-game scoring for the most part on both of those.
Each player is also going to randomly draw 2 private goals, and they're going to pick one of those to score at the end of the game and put the rest back into the box. And then you have all of these privilege cards.
Right.
Privilege cards will also typically score you victory points at the end of the game, but they also give you ongoing benefits when you collect them through the course of the game.
Yeah, which are really the big aspect of the privilege cards, is it allows you to sort of break the very most basic rules of this game, which are very simple, the way you move and hop over frogs.
Yeah.
So if you're allowed to break those rules, it opens up a lot of options on your turn.
So the heart of the game is really kind of a set collection style game. You'll be moving frogs through the course of the game and collecting the frogs that you jump over, sometimes using their ability, sometimes keeping them in front of you to score at the end. So this is how a turn works. It's very simple. On your turn, you have to jump for another frog. And at the start of the game, there's only 4 options, obviously. Yeah. So you take any one of the frogs that's available to be moved, and you jump it over, and then you take whatever colored frog that you jumped over and place it in front of you. Yeah, and that's your turn.
That's your turn. What's really cool, though, is you can either keep the frog in front of you.
Yep.
Again, for those set collections, you may want to consider doing that. But probably more importantly are the abilities that those frogs allow you to do.
Yes.
For instance, well, there is one frog that doesn't give you an ability. The brown frogs you will always keep in front of you. Those are just going to be points at the end of the game for everybody.
Yep.
But then with each color, they do something a little bit different.
Yeah, let's talk about the red frog first. If you turn in a red frog, you're allowed to return it down to the bottom of the board and then take another jump. So I could move this guy here and then take the brown frog. Now you can't keep using red frogs over and over.
Right,
you're only allowed to do the second option once.
Exactly. That's the first obvious question. It's like, oh, I could chain that together forever. No, it's just up to a max of 2 moves.
The next frog is the yellow frog. If you take a yellow frog, you can either keep that frog in front of you or return it to the camp and then take a different colored frog that's available and put it in front of you.
Right, and it also should be noted, you might be thinking, do you have to use the frog that you've just taken?
Yes.
You do not have to use the frog you've just taken. You can take it, if you've collected a few frogs in front of you, you could take that yellow frog, but instead hand in the red frog to take its action.
Right. And the last action you can take is the blue frogs. When you return a blue frog to the pool at the bottom, you're allowed to take any one of the privilege cards. Now, the privilege cards, as David said, they give you ongoing benefits to the game. Some of them give you just a flat-out number of victory points. Some of them let you jump diagonally, because all the jumping in the game is orthogonal. Some of them let you slide a frog all the way down the board and then jump. Some of them let you jump in an L shape.
Yeah, and some of them even have some different, completely different ways of scoring. For instance, this last one here, there are these pink flowers on some of the lily pads, and if you have that privilege card, you're able to score points every time you're jumping onto one of those lily pads with a frog. So In one of our games, our friend Gary picked up that card. In fact, he might have picked up
two of them.
Two of those cards, so they stacked, and he was just looking for those opportunities to jump on pink flowers.
Not really caring what he collected.
Yeah, not really thinking about the frogs that he was collecting. I think it came back to haunt him in the end.
Yeah, it did.
But it was an interesting, different path to scoring some points.
So the game will actually end when one of the players is not able to make a physical jump. Even if other players at the table have abilities that would allow them to jump, as soon as one player at the table can't make a physical jump, that signifies the end of the game. And then you're going to tally up all the different victory points. You're going to score victory points for any of your private cards. For instance, this one says if I have a blue and a brown pair, I score 3 points. Now, anytime you see a white number in the game, that means it can be scored multiple times. So for every pair I have, I score 3 points. The brown cards are just simply a flat-out number of points that you will get. Also, there's some public goals that say maxes and mins on them. If you are the only player to have the maximum number of blue frogs, you score 6. However, it's a tie, each player at the table will score 3.
What's nice, too, is some of those end-of-the-game scoring cards, you can find some synergies. So if I have points for every brown and blue, but then I also have bonus points for every brown, you're able to take advantage of all those brown frogs twice, if you will, in that way.
Right. And that's basically the game. Now, this game is really cool. I said this to you guys when we were making our Origins list. I said out of all the games that we picked, and we picked this one number 13, I picked this actually as my number 2 game. I said, of all the games that we picked, this is the game that I think would be played the most. It's very quick to play, super simple to set up and break down. It's got a lot of different variables in it by the way these come out, a lot of different strategies on how you play, and it's very approachable for all ages. You can play this with young kids all the way up to grown adults.
Huge gateway game for people getting into the enthusiast market for games because, like you said, anyone could play this game. Could they play it well? Maybe not. But anyone can play the game because you're just jumping these frogs and taking the frogs. And some kids are going to just have fun doing that. And we said that in in our Origins video. Now, what's cool about it is then they start to learn, like, oh, I can do this. It is a very natural progression for kids to like do those actions and then go, oh, wait a minute, I can score points for every brown one. I'm going to go after the brown ones. And then with more plays, they start to see the whole breadth of strategy.
So it's almost like a small engine building game at times by building the right kind of cards or collecting the right kind of privilege cards and then going after the right kind of goals at the end.
Well, and controlling what's out on the board as well, because you want to take a look at the board. If you're looking at a goal card that gives you points for red frogs, and there's very few red frogs out there, you might want to adjust your moves so that you at least milk that for what it's worth. Or move on to something else to try to score some more points before the end of the game.
The other thing I'll say about this game is I think it's rife for expansions as well. You can add a lot of different cards in here and not change the basic dynamic of the gameplay itself.
Yeah, and I hope they do that. I mean, when I look at a game like this, I can't exactly tell you why, but when I look at a game like this, it doesn't seem like the kind of game that would get an expansion. It seems like it will be a standalone game forever and always. But you're right. There's a lot of opportunities for expansions for sure in terms of what you can do with the frogs. Different abilities for scoring points, just like the flowers we were talking about. Very cool.
Highly suggest this game. Go check it out at Origins. That's when it's releasing to the public. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. We will answer them for you. Come out to Origins, say hi to us. We will be there for 5 days straight,
We will be there for the full extent of the show. And playing games and walking around, taking it all in just like everyone else.
Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do here, Man vs. Meeple, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by our friends at TMG Games. And at Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.